Yeah, no kidding. Jesus. My audio working on here? Mr. Landfill. Hey, Jake, is this mic working? Okay. So I'll wait a couple minutes here till get a few more people on here. Damn technology, I tell you. Patrick, you creeping? Hope you're doing well, buddy. And my damn laptop decided it needed an update, of course, when I wanted to go live. Man, all eyes on me, I guess. Jesus. Muskegon, huh? Well, that's pretty close to me. It's not too far. Crafty, how's it going? So in case you guys don't know, me and Jake, Buckeye Bushcraft, and Tony, Tony Powers at Adaptable Survival, we do a class in November. So if y'all are interested in doing some training, make sure you check out Jake's site. Sure, if you just hop over on his page, you can link to that. It's just BuckeyeBushcraft.com. So get back in the saddle again. Me and Tony are running a class at the end of next month down in Indiana. If you're interested in that, shoot me a message. I can hook you up with where to get the info for that, get signed up, whatnot. Well, we'll hop into this. I got like 11 people in here, so see if that number grows. Make sure you hit that thumbs up, get this thing going. Basically, what I wanted to run through tonight is just talking about what it is or how it was like being an instructor. Obviously, now being out on my own, I haven't really taught a ton of classes this year. It's been more of like a mental reset for me. For some of you that may not know, I taught at the Pathfinder School for the last 3 years up until the beginning of this year. So, me living in Wisconsin, particularly northeastern Wisconsin, right around Green Bay, my travel down there is about 12-hour drive one way. So, if you figure I'm teaching 12 classes a year at minimum, that's 24 hours of driving per class. So, pretty much through the course of this year, after I left, decided that kind of hit where I felt I could go with that place. That it was time for me to head out on my own. So that's what I did. And so mainly this year, I've had a lot of opportunities to teach classes. It's just things have come up. My brother, one of my youngest brothers, went to the Army this year. So I've been going to a lot of his graduations. I just went to San Antonio last week for his graduation from AIT. So a lot of things going on there. I'm actually back in school now myself, finishing my degree in emergency management and homeland security, figuring out where that's going to specialize in. So that's taken up some time, getting back in the swing of making YouTube content, because that, as easy as videos look like they are to make, that polished up thing that we post up, a lot goes into that. Like for myself, I know most of my videos at minimum take me at least an hour to shoot, if not longer, depending on the topic, of course. So a lot of work goes in those videos, and I actually had to scrap, I think, 2 or 3 videos recently, because I got back to the house here to start editing them up, start getting them done. One, the rain could be heard in the background of my mic. So if you've noticed in the last couple of videos I've posted, the sound is a little bit better, so you're only really capturing me talking. Before I had it set so high that you could hear me breathing and my mic was like halfway down my shirt, and if it was raining, it sounded like there was static in the background. So, um, so getting back to being an instructor, when I started taking training classes and courses, I wanted to be an instructor. It wasn't necessarily like the goal and intent to be an instructor at the Pathfinder School. It just so happened to work out that way. My goal was to get the training and then start my own school here in Wisconsin. And that still is the goal. Right now, I'm actually looking at a few programs, actually applying for a few programs to help me get that launched a little bit better. Put that a primary focus for what I'm going into this upcoming year. So with that concept of training, anything you're doing in life, whether you're learning how to make YouTube videos, anything, there's always some sort of training. So I went into it getting my own training. I've always been in survival and the outdoors for the majority of my life, even though I didn't camp a ton as I was younger. And I wanted to get those courses because it's like I preach now, and like Jake and Tony and a lot of the other guys that I know, you gain a lot more from that hands-on experience with someone who's teaching it. Because when you start teaching things, you learn a lot more intricacies to different skills and the challenges and pitfalls, and I'll touch on that a little bit more. If you didn't catch it, I did put an Instagram story up to kind of get some ideas for questions that people had. And if you do have questions, throw them down in the comments. I'll try and catch them as they flow across the screen here. So I wanted to get out to courses to further enhance my own skills, to just continually add to that. A big reason was because I wanted to learn navigation and get a lot better than that. And when I did take those courses, I became extremely proficient with navigation, like right off the bat. Shout out to Josh Anier, great gray bearded Green Beret. Him and Sean were actually the ones that taught me probably the most about land navigation. And how I got so good with it was because how they broke it down. It made it so simple, and it translates now to how I teach students. You can ask Jake. His brother is actually in the Army as well now, and he's rocking and rolling that land nav. And I would like to think that I helped him in that part of his journey and being able to really perform at that excellent level. So with becoming an instructor, all that, it's all fun and games, and it's just like YouTube. People see, oh, what we're seeing on social media as it's all dolled up to be, and it's great, grand, and wonderful. And it does. There's a lot of great times in it. I've had a lot of excellent times with Tony and Jake and Sean and everyone else I've taught with. But there does come a cost to instructing. If you've taken a class, you know that you get worn out during a class. Teaching takes out probably just as much, not so much physically, but mentally. And mentally for you, like, man, that it can really just hammer you down. That's kind of how, like, for myself, through teaching and kind of getting a better understanding of how I function, that that social battery, once that it's completely worn out at the end of the day, you just want some time to yourself for a bit. And I know that I was like that. I know Jake and Tony were like that as well. We just need a little bit of time to decompress, just be with ourselves for a minute, kind of get reset. And that let's translate over now. I try to find that nice fine balance between get out there and attacking opportunities, but not at the detriment of my own physical well-being, really. My mental health, my physical health. Although I've been slacking and getting back to the gym, that's something I want to get into. And that's another thing, being on the road so much. So I don't know for like 2020, 21, 20, but 2022, I can tell you, I think I taught at least 12 classes. It might have been more. I don't remember the exact number, but I know total days that I drove down to Ohio and other locations to teach. almost totaled 2 months worth of driving. Now that isn't like hours, that's just days. So, I broke them up into 6 hour driving spells, done a lot of 12 hour, straight through drives, which I can do it, but my brain is mush on either end of that trip. Um, Hopefully this is still going. Um, so that time on the road, you know, people are just seeing that end result of you being on social media, the class pictures, the YouTube videos, but you're not seeing all the background stuff that's going on. You're not seeing the travel, the time away from home. So for me specifically, being gone so long, by time I got, back home, because I'm still working for REI, I would get home, I'd have maybe one day off, and then I'd be back working for REI for 3-4 days, and then getting ready to leave again for Ohio. And I did that all last year. And the past year taught me a ton on where I was at, where I wanted to go, and how I felt was the best approach to go there. So, if you think about it, you can only burn the candle at both ends for so long before you're just like, all right, you're at that pivotal moment where you have to make a choice. Am I going to keep doing what I'm doing with all that's going on with that, or do I need to risk it all and try something else? Sean talks about this a lot on his channel, just taking that leap and just going for it, because if you don't take that leap, you're never going to know what you're capable of, number one, but it may be the most successful thing you've ever done. For instance, take a look at Tony. He's just started making knives like 6 months ago, and I see a post he did recently. He's already made 100 knives. If you look at that, that's just cranking them out. And if you look at his very first knives compared to what he's putting out now, like the quality is phenomenal. It's something that you would think you would find like in a store, like Smoky Mountain Knife Works, or something that someone's been doing for years, not months. So last year, especially leading up to the end of the year, I needed to make that choice for myself. So with looking back to what my goal initially was, to become an instructor, it just so happened that I got the opportunity to teach there, and there's positives with that we can hit on. But I needed to get back to what was going to be fulfilling to me. And Sean talks about this, doing something that gives you fulfillment in life, that gives you that drive. And I had to make that choice that the Pathfinder School is no longer the right atmosphere for me. I felt that I grew as far as I could grow there. Obviously, there's probably more skills that I could have learned, but for how I like to teach skills, what I'm interested in teaching, I felt like I've kind of capped out where I was going to go, both knowledge-wise as well as financially. So, if you've ever met me, ever been one of my students, ever talked to me at an event, anything like that, you'll know that what you see is what you get. I'm not going to sugarcoat shit. I'll tell you straight up how it is. You ask me a question, I'll tell you my opinion on it. Financially. So teaching, like I said, it may have been 12 classes, probably was more than that. But I think I brought home $24,000 at the end of the year. So you break that down, an average class is about 3 days, plus at least 2 days on the road, if not more. That all that time adds up. And for me, for $24,000, that time away from home, putting some strain on relationships here, taking energy away from me to put that into my YouTube channel, to put that into my pursuits, it just wasn't worth it anymore. And like I said, I grew a ton instructing at that school. I met Jake and Tony, and they're my best friends. There's very few days that I don't talk to either of them. We talk like damn near every single day. We're worse than women sometimes. Don't cancel me for that. I mean that in the most respectful way possible. So I made that choice that, hey, I need to go out and do my own thing. If I fail, I fail. But I know that I wanted to go back to school and finish my degree. So now moving forward, I'm trying to figure out, all right, how can I blend what I'm going to school for and what my passion for the outdoors are. Obviously, I love photography as well, so blending all these things together. Still trying to figure that out. Finally, in the last 2 months or so, I finally feel mentally in the right headspace to really get out there and attack some of these things that I really been meaning to and really wanted to get after. Let me scroll through here quick so before I get too behind in the chat. Yeah, Patrick. So that was with Jake rubbing it in. If I can talk, how good the snacks were. That was a small spin on classes that I started to do in the last year or so that I was at the school, of creating those small incentives, never telling people that that was coming, but when it did happen, giving them that morale boost to kind of like help push them over that hump. I know that's happened for Jake in a couple of classes. Um, Butcher the Roosters. Hell yeah, man, that's what's up. Yeah, Tony's knives are wicked sharp. They're probably some of the sharpest knives I've ever owned. Um, I might need to get a few more from Tony. Note to self, yeah, Swish, you're gonna have to pick up one of Tony's knives. I have one, the first Savage that he made, and that thing is awesome. Like I destroy wood in the woods with that. It's one of my favorite knives, other than the other knife I've had made earlier this year by another knife maker out in Utah. I appreciate it, Swish. Yeah. So for a lot of you don't know, I was actually Jake was in one of my very first basic classes. So his basic class that he was taking, I was his instructor for. That's kind of how we connected, and then Jake just became part of the group for a long time, and then now we're off all doing our own thing. Let's see. So Patrick, with the navigation, with the accuracy and your pace count, um, that's always going to be a struggle. Um, I have yet to find a one-for-one method of getting extremely accurate with traveling over land using pace count. I mean, I can get pretty damn close to the point I'm trying to get to. Like in the winter survival course I took up with the Adirondacks with GB2 and Sean, I was almost dead on every single point. I would say I was within like a 10 or 15 foot radius of the point all the time. There was a few times I had to put up my way marker and then kind of look around, but I got pretty damn close to it. I would say if you can get to the point where when you're navigating to a point over land, if you can hit within, say, 10 to 20 feet, I mean, that's pretty damn accurate if you're looking at it in the bigger scheme of things, because you're trying to get to a little point on a big ass map. So like if you're getting within 20 feet, I mean, if you're staying aware of your surroundings, you'll pick up the points you're trying to hit at. Jake in his Ohio. Let's see. Appreciate that, Pat. David, I don't know of a ton of places in Cali. I know there is. I'm trying to think of there's a school, a survival school based out of LA. I can't remember it, but I think if you look up survival school, his logo is blue and yellow. I think it's like is it Koi Survival School or something along those lines. I've heard pretty good things about it. I haven't had a chance to get out there and take classes myself. Redheaded stepchild keeps on going. Hey, that's what it's all about. So with classes, so kind of getting back to what kind of led me to going to Pathfinder, because obviously Pathfinder school, obviously A lot of us know Dave from being on TV. And so I started looking at schools. This was back in, see, I took my first course in 2018. Took a Bushcraft 101. And there was, I think, 4 students in there. It's me, um, another guy, Jake, I know from Chicago, my buddy, fucking spacing on his name. Man, I can't think of his name, but he's out at NYC, and then Madison Poole. She runs the Bombshell Bushcraft, and that was a really useful class because that kind of got me introduced to things. And then a couple months later, took basic. Tom Coyne, yeah, that's the guy. Um, okay, you'll have to let me know how those classes were. There's a few of his classes I was looking at taking. But looking back, hindsight, if I were to do my journey all over again, starting from no classes to, becoming an instructor, and I've had tons of people reach out to me and ask me a similar question, and I've always given them a pretty similar answer is I would go to as many different courses as you can at as many different class or schools you can. Um, Pathfinder School was just the closest, other than Nature Reliance, and I think at the time I wasn't quite aware of what Craig was doing down in Kentucky. So um, the Pathfinder School was just the most popular one that I could come across. So I ended up taking classes there, and we know how that story plays out. But I would, if I were just starting this now, I would go and take as many different survival classes as I could in as many different environments as possible. That's kind of the benefit I had of being one of the first people through the instructor program that GBTU and Pathfinder School had at the time. Is I did a course in the Adirondacks and I did one down in Florida. I did my intermediate down there, not in the swamps per se, but gave me a pretty good education on what to prioritize down in the south because humidity can be a little bit different down there. So I would say go to the Pathfinder School, go to Nature Reliance, go to Fieldcraft Survival. I've actually followed Mike Glover pretty much ever since he started Fieldcraft Survival, and to see how much that company has grown. Now he's got Kevin Estella there. Like, it's just impressive what they've been able to build, and I'm hoping to get out to some of their classes. Finally meet Kevin. I've talked to him a couple times through social media. Seems like extremely knowledgeable dude. Cool, down to earth dude as well. There's Tom Coyne. There's Cody Lundeen. There's Boss out west. I mean, there's tons of instructors out there, and a lot more people getting out there and sharing. Not only their knowledge, which, let's be honest here, a lot of the survival knowledge, if you picked up enough books, you can figure it all out. Looking at old things like earlier this year, I bought a 18 DVD set of Ron Hood videos. So I've been kind of picking away at that every once in a while. But, you can gain a lot of this knowledge. But if your plan is to become an instructor, get out there and experience the training styles of a lot of different schools. Because not only are you going to get different experiences, but you're also going to see different ways of teaching. Over the course of my time at the school, I've really changed from, trying to drill your ass into the ground to be more of a coach and help you build those skills, build that self-confidence in the skills. Because that's also another big thing with taking courses that can really change the mindset for a lot of people. Let's see here. Let's see. Not too many questions, but kind of back, and I know I'm kind of jumping around here. That's just how my brain is, and we're real scatterbrained sometimes. But some of the downsides, so like I was speaking with financials, $24,000 to be on the road for almost 2 months, just driving alone. That's not even counting in classes. I think with classes, let's say about 3.5 months, maybe 4 months. For me, $24,000 just wasn't it. I was making more money than I ever did in my life, combined with that in REI. But what's the point of making money if you don't have the time to enjoy it and progress forward? If you're just kind of spinning your tires, it's like playing a video game and never getting to the next level. How long are you going to play that video game before you're like, all right, I'm done with this. I can't get to the next level. This game blows. So the thing you have to understand with working with, and I can only speak to working with one school. I don't know how other schools set this up. Whether they're W-2 employees or 1099s. But I was a 1099 employee, which would make me a self-employed contractor. If you know anything about taxes at all, or if you're 1099 yourself, you get hammered with taxes. So that 24,000, I get hit with taxes and all of my expenses. I think, let's see, last year my total expenses were in the neighborhood of 12 grand. That's gas, insurance, fixing my vehicle, oil changes, gear for classes, gears for videos, hotels, all of that was right around 12 grand. So even calculating 12 grand of expenses into what I made, I still owe $1,500 for my taxes. It's better than I think that what initially was like 5 grand that I was going to be hit for. But if you think about that, for 12 grand, I'm on the road for 3-4 months. So it is what it is. Shush, white man. Well, Sally, too bad I'm not a white man, I'm Native American. So let's see here. Nobody cares. Well, obviously you do. So you're on the live stream. So thanks for watching. As my good buddy Sean would say, thanks for watching. So, yeah, Bill, that bill don't work, or that math don't work. At a certain point, yes, to get started, it's a good launching point, but there's not, for me anyway, in my own opinion, my own assessment of my experience, there was no long-term goal for it on my journey. So that's what led me to wanting to leave. Obviously, there's other things in the background that I won't discuss, but I'm actually looking at purchasing some land now. With being Native American, I can get some help from the tribe and some other avenues for funding. So looking at that. He wears glasses. Well, hate to break it to you, Sally, but it's 2023. There's a lot of people wearing glasses. I'd rather wear glasses than be blind as hell. So, land's high, but they make it only. I mean, like land costs for me here, in this part of my state at least, right around Green Bay, northeastern Wisconsin, averages, I think starting off at like 1,500 to 2 grand per acre. There is a part in the northwestern part of this of Wisconsin that I can find acres for about 500, but there's nothing around for like an hour. So one of the things, like for me personally, looking to buy land is I want a town close enough to where if students are traveling there, they have a hotel they can stay at before and after a class if they want. That's within 3 hours of an airport. That's not going to break the bank to fly into. So the area that I was looking at in northwestern Wisconsin, the closest airport is Duluth, but you're looking at like $500-$600 for a flight into that airport, or a 2 to 3 hour drive from Minneapolis, which is not the worst. So some of the things that I look for land, or I'm looking for land, is a big enough town that at least has a hotel, some sort of grocery store or Walmart-esque store. So if students don't have something or need something for the class, they can easily go to town and get it at night. And that's not a super long drive from an airport. So those are the only real criteria I have. Plus, I'm trying to find the best bang for my buck acreage-wise. What is your plan moving forward? So I did kind of touch on this, Tim. So as of right now, I only have 2 classes on the books. One with Tony. Me and Tony are teaching a class right outside of Indianapolis, October 27th through the 29th, if I remember correctly. I have a post on my Instagram and Facebook about that one. And then I'm doing another class with Jake and Tony down in Ohio at Jake's property. I think that's November 10th, 11th, and 12th, if I remember correctly. Other than that, right now, I'm back in school. I'm going to finish my degree in emergency management and homeland security. That's going to take me about 2 years because I'm only doing 2 classes a semester, just because I don't want to overload myself. So once I get that done, hopefully have my land and some classes going on, but I may look at taking some sort of government job, whether that is at the federal, state level, tribal level, or I may go to get my master's degree. I'm actually looking at one program at Florida State right now for my master's degree, if I decide to go that route. Other than that, it's just getting back into a consistent rhythm with YouTube. That could be a struggle, especially with me taking a lot of time off this year. It's like trying to get back into working out. It's going to take time to build the habit, but once you get that habit going, it's a no-brainer. You just get up; it's part of your routine. So that's kind of what I'm doing moving forward. Yeah, man, I definitely understand, trying to get out for classes, but I know next year, all 3 of us are going to try and get some more classes going on, whether that's by ourselves individually. And I know all 3 of us are always open to do private classes. Something I've always thought about the private class thing, and the one challenge I could see with that is like if, let's say, one of you contact me, hey, I want you to come out for a private one-on-one class. The trouble is like there's a lot of costs with that. Not only for me to travel there, but for you to hire me. So like usually the best bang for your buck that I've told people that are interested in that, if you can get a group of people together, it's going to make the cost per person cheaper for you, and a little bit easier on everyone. So everyone's kind of in a win-win situation, and not, you're not paying me $700 to come out for X amount of days. By all means, if you want to do that, I'm open to that. But for me, I try to balance out, giving people a really good product, but not overcharging for that. Everyone's time is valuable, but economic wise, not everyone has that expendable income. Appreciate Daniel. Appreciate you for subscribing, Layla. Smash 100%. Let's see. Yeah, man, I get Swish. We might have to invent that troll away. We'll rake in the dough. I mean, if someone can make millions of dollars selling a pet rock, I think we could put some troll away spray together and make some money. Let's see. Haters gonna hate. Yeah, that's just a fact of life. Some people are gonna love you. Some people are gonna hate you. But we all die in the end. So the correct answer is hell no, Jake. Look, Ma, it's Steven Seagal. Hey, look at that. I don't know. I'm not as chunky as Steven Seagal, and I'm not a fake martial artist. Hitting the nail on the head, Jake. Jake, you need to learn how to type, my dude. If you're not spelling ducks in our chats, you're talking about hit him on the nail on the head. There you go. That'll turn for something, Patrick. Let me try and think of what those other. So one of the questions I got on my Instagram story was, what is the hardest skill to teach? And I don't necessarily think that any skill is particularly hard to teach. What's usually the hardest to teach someone is the intricacies of a particular skill. Like Patrick was talking about navigation. I mean, there is so much with navigation that you can really get lost in the weeds. The one thing I've always done with navigation is I've always boiled it down to be so simple that I can teach it to a kid and that they can go out and do it. But once you start getting into some of those more advanced techniques, there's a steep learning curve. One of the things I've always, when I've worked with people one on one, I told them that navigation is more of a confidence game than it is doing the particular skill. Because if you're not confident with it, you're going to absolutely butcher the skill. And that goes for anything, any survival skill that you learn. Another thing that has a ton of small intricacies that are extremely hard to teach, and it takes a lot of reps and a lot of time, is bow drill. Anyone can carve up a bow drill set, but getting an ember and knowing how to adjust to stop your bearing block from shouldering out, your spindle from shouldering out, what color dust to look for, all these small minute things are usually the hardest things to get students to understand. But once they understand it, it becomes so simple. A lot of survival skills are extremely simple. It's just finding all the small things that make it click in your brain is usually the hardest thing to get people to understand. Damn you, Google. Let's see. I think a lot of us have a built-in compass. Maybe to some degree, but you see how some people drive out there? Man, I don't know if they do. Yep. Oh, Jax. I don't know. Hit me up. We'll figure out something. Try to think what other skills are usually pretty hard. I would say those two, a lot of primitive skills, like flint napping. Now, I've never done or tried to learn flint napping, but I watched Tony break so many pieces of glass and so many rocks trying to do that. I'm just like, maybe someday. Maybe someday. So I've never taught a ton of primitive skills, but I've taught a few, and those do have their challenges. But for what I've taught most frequently, bow drill, navigation, bar none. Another question I got was, I think he meant to put pet peeves, but he just sent peeves. If you ever had me as an instructor, you will know that I'm extremely patient. I will work with you. I know me, Tony, Jake, Jax, Sean, Andrew Heath. We've all been up to crazy hours of the night working with students to get them to master a skill or to get to tasks done. So I don't personally have a ton of pet peeves. My pet peeves are usually not focused so much with like class. It's other things that irritate the hell out of me. Like one thing I can't stand hearing people eat. That drives me absolutely up the wall. Trying to think. I mean, I'm such a go with the flow kind of guy that my baseline, like, good luck trying to get my heart elevated unless you piss me off, and then World War III starts. Trying to think. There was one other question, but I can't think of it at the moment. And I know if I try and shrink this screen down, it might cancel out this live stream. Let's see. Jax, you tested my patience, though. I had to yell at you at the advanced class. We got to learn from native indigenous, sharpening sticks, bamboo, never needed metallurgy. Well, more props for you if you can go without using metal out in the woods. Yeah, Tony's a great teacher. Adolf Hitler, huh? I don't know who that is, but probably kind of a crappy dude. Let's see. You guys have any questions on things with being an instructor? advice you want, any kind of the hidden hurdles that you may not know about. I'm trying to think of some other things that were challenging. I mean, with any workplace, you're gonna have your challenges. I know, like for me and Tony and Jake and Jax, like I don't think I've argued with all of them or any of them very often. Um, Usually playing the diplomat, but had those moments of flare ups, when personalities start to clash. That's life. That's just people. Is it night? It is night. Worst student I had, best student I had. I mean, all of my students are. I view them as being good students because they're there to learn, and as long as they're willing to learn, I'm willing to help them out and teach them. Um, but I can't really pick out one that's been like the best. I could tell you one student that shocked the hell out of me with how well skilled they were. It was Jake and his brother Zach. I know what they're basic. So when students go out on their first land nav, um, on average they take the full time allotted. I think it's usually about 2 hours. Jake and his brother were back in 45 minutes. And I was like, there's no way that these guys are back that fucking fast. Um, sure enough, checked their nav 100%, got all the points, got everything they needed. That's by far one of the most impressive things. Worst student I've ever had, Jake. Yeah, yeah. See, Tony just told you his topic. Worst student I've ever had. I won't say their name, but I don't even know if they were my student personally in this course, but they were trying to tell other students that they were an instructor and tell them, what was going to happen the next day. So comes that next day, and things don't quite turn out how he told those students, and everyone was pissed. And I've never seen a grown man shrink so much in my life. This dude was over 6 foot tall, and you would have thought he was, smaller than a toddler by the time he got chewed out. Let's see. Good stuff. Crafty, I remember that class. That was probably one of the coolest things I've ever seen as an instructor was that determination to just grind away at it until the very last minute. That's one thing that really doesn't get highlighted with what you gain from taking courses is the mental resilience you build in yourself and that self-confidence. And I touched on this earlier in the live stream. So for me as an instructor and how I morphed more into a coach than an instructor and like just being a teacher and giving you assignments was seeing that shift in people. When that self-confidence rose, and they finally accomplished something, like that is game changer for people. And that's what I wanted. If I wasn't going to make a ton of money teaching, but I got that with every student I ever had, that would be more than well worth it for me. Yeah, like Jack says, that's one of the hardest parts of being an instructor is making sure everyone gets that one-on-one attention because it can be hard, especially if you have a big class. Um, making sure each person is feeling like they're being included in that one-on-one time, not being left out. I think that's where having a good team of instructors that can really play off of each other's strengths, and even if, like, let's say this student isn't in their particular group for that class, they're still willing to shift over and help them when needed. A strong team takes you a long way, and people can tell when the people on that team know what the hell they're talking about. There's a lot of people out there that should not be teaching survival skills because their level is probably not much higher than the students that are taking the class. I had the benefit of really, going full force in this because I wanted to be an instructor. So I got extremely proficient with the skills that I wanted to teach. And I'm able to convey that to students. Not everyone's like that. A saying I've told people is that you can teach anyone anything, but not everyone can teach somebody something. I think everyone can learn something from one another, but not everyone's cut out to be an instructor or being a teacher. And that's no detriment on them. It's just they don't have either the personality for it, the temperament. They just don't have that factor that separates someone who's like, okay, I'm teaching you something, to, all right, this person is extremely knowledgeable and helping me achieve something that I never thought I could do. Gay, gay, gay. Man, Rex, you might want to go get some help, my dude. So, crazy backyard chicken man. I'm 34 and I've learned a ton in my life. I feel like I've lived like multiple lives at this point. Probably even shouldn't be alive at this point in my life, but that's a topic for another story or another day. Yeah, there's definitely a time where one-on-one is needed. I think when you have a bigger class or a big group of people trying to learn something, it's not always the easiest to do, but I do think it's something that fundamentally should be included in any course that you take. That one-on-one time, you know, the instructors, since you're paying those instructors to be there. Now, this kind of goes back to, you know, with pay and time on the road, time in class. No one wants to work 16, 17, 18 hours a day and have, a couple days of shifts that long. But I know for me, there's many a times where I've done that, where I've gotten like four, three, sometimes less hours of sleep because I was up so late helping students. I think that really what separates okay instructors from exceptional instructors. Those instructors that are willing to sacrifice their downtime to ensure that students leave that course with not only the skills but an experience and something that they can look back on and say, damn, I accomplished that. I got my ass kicked for 3 days, but I left so much more empowered, so much more skilled, so much more capable for whatever adventures I head out on. You know, if your instructor's beating feet at the end of the day, I mean, I don't know what to say. That's not my style, but some do that, I suppose. Teach Jim. uh, how's it going, Blackie? So for me here in Wisconsin, we have black bear, we have wolves, coyotes, but I know a lot of places have coyotes now. We do have mountain lions, cougars that do come through our state. I don't know how many are actually like living in the state, but they pass moose in some part of the state. Huge issue with wildlife in general coming into my camps. I think the most I've ever had to deal with was a raccoon get pretty close to my camp. But I'm usually going to areas that aren't frequented by a lot of people, so I don't have to worry about animals being accustomed to being fed by humans. So that's a lot of times when you're having those issues with wildlife, it's because they've become accustomed to humans providing food. They're seeing that as a food source. It's like a black bear or a grizzly knowing that this particular creek every year has salmon. I'm going to go there for food. Same thing happens if people are continually feeding animals. Just look at what happens in some national parks. You have people trying to pet buffalo or, run up the wildlife and, you see them get attacked. And I personally don't feel bad for those people because it's a wild animal. What do you think was going to happen? So me personally, I don't have a ton of issues. I do take precautions just in the off chance I have to deal with an animal, especially if you're being quiet, you're hiking out solo. Chances are you're not making a ton of noise. I'm not wearing bells and whistles or anything crazy, so I do carry some tools for my self protection. And a lot of times it's not so much I'm worried about animals; it's about the other two-legged animals that are walking around that I'm more concerned with. Uh, yeah, you'll get that. Glad you're doing well, Blackie. Hopefully, I run into you soon. I think you're going to be at that expo in March, so I'll be down there in Kentucky myself. So hopefully, we'll finally get to chat a little bit. Coyotes are in all 50 states now. Yeah, I've heard them. I haven't been in Kentucky a ton, but I know where I was in Ohio. Here, I hear them a ton, but they never get close enough to camp to ever me really worrying about them. Yeah, 100% Blackie. I've been in areas where there's recent bear activity, but here in Wisconsin we have black bear, and they're extremely skittish of humans. So chances are they're tucking tail and running before you even notice that they're there. A lot of times when you have those interactions with wildlife, it's because you startle them or you're near their younglings. So kind of to be anticipated. Hell yeah, Swish. Good luck, man. Hope you crush it. So, prepping for a class, I still get I don't get stage fright, but I do get nervous. I think it just about anyone kind of gets nervous to some degree. For me, it's more so I'm just gearing myself up mentally to being talking so much. If you've ever been around me a lot, I don't talk always. I can be a pretty silent guy sometimes. So I run through a lot of times what I'm going to be teaching in my head. I don't go point for point what I'm going to talk about, but I break down. All right, I'm teaching, let's say, backpacking basics. These are the categories I want to talk about, and I usually have some sort of notes. I'm not reading, line for line out of my notes. I usually have bullet points of the topic I want to talk about, and then the rest of it just comes from memory. Since I've immersed myself so much in the outdoors, not only in the last 5 years, but I would say easily the last 10, 15 years. A lot of the knowledge, just like as long as I see the word of the topic I want to talk about, I can recall all the other information I want to. Sometimes there's gaps, but that's going to happen to anyone. I do make it a habit before classes, though, of going through my notes and refreshing all of it so it's all fresh in my brain. That's how I've always prepared for not only classes, but when I had to do like speeches for school. Oh, that ain't a lie, Bill. Skunks will get your attention if they're in your camp. That's not a lie. EP has a bunch. Man. Others unteachable. Let's let wiping your own self out. Yeah, man. Like there's some. I mean, I wouldn't necessarily say people are unteachable, but there's some people that's gonna take a lot more for them to learn. Ask my buddy Tony. There's still stuff I try to teach that guy from time to time. Let's see if there's any other things I missed on here. Oh. All right. So I'll wait for some more comments to pop in here. I'll stick on here for like 5-10 minutes or so. There's one thing that I've seen recently a lot in some comments that, I think people get the wrong misconception. when you're teaching for a survival school, this isn't like a normal job. You know, when I got hired at REI, I went through a training process. You know, they paid me to be there to do the training for the department I was going to work in, gave me all the resources, whatever, yada, yada, yada. If I was going to be an electrician, there's a little bit more, some schooling to that. But, you know, you find any job just about on the market. When you get hired on, there's some training process. Working for a survival school, and now I can only speak to one survival school about this, but there's this must be this misconception that, you know, oh, you're going to become an instructor for the school, so you get all the training. And then they try and say, oh, he gave you all this training. And I know all the instructors, we just about paid for all of our training, whether that was monetary or by putting in work as a helper. So it's not like we were just given training and built up from zero. It's like we all came in with some sort of prior knowledge, some sort of prior skills. I know Jax, for one, she did training over in the UK and Europe before she even took classes over here. Me, Tony, Jake, Sean, we all trained this stuff, maybe not always in an official capacity, but to some degree on our own by doing YouTube videos, things like that, through growing up out in the woods. So it's not like we were built up from zero and like, oh, I want you to be an instructor for me, so I'm going to give you all this training. It's all stuff we paid for. I mean, hell, I'm still trying to pay off all of the debt I incurred to pay for my travel expenses, pay for gear, pay for the classes. I'm still paying that stuff off to this day, and I think the last class I paid for was maybe 2-3 years ago. So it's not like it's any other job where you get hired on, you get free training or paid training. This is all stuff that's coming out of your pocket before you even consider to be hired on as an instructor. I will say, man, crazy backyard chicken man, Kentucky's a pretty beautiful state. I've always heard, you know, about like, you know, the stereotype with Kentucky and all that. But when I was down there, I'll give you props, man. It's beautiful country down there. I hope to go back to that. I mean, yeah, it sucks that I had to incur some debt, but you know, I look at it like this. You know, with going to school, I'm incurring some debt. If you're starting a business, you know, typically what they say in that first year or two, you're going to be in the red and the black. I don't know. I'm not a business major, but you're going to have to pay to some degree into whatever venture you're going to go into for yourself. And essentially that's what I was doing because I was a 1099 contractor, so I was a self-employed contractor. So essentially how I look at it now is, you know, it was an investment for me to learn these skills to another level, to learn, you know, how to become an instructor, you know, over the course of that period. I will tell you one of probably the biggest influences I had with how I crafted my teaching style now is Matt Mercer from Black Hat Bushcraft. Seeing how Matt teaches students and how he generally cares, not only about students, but just about anyone he interacts with, was fundamentally different, like so impactful for my development as an instructor, that I could never thank Matt enough for that. Matt wasn't one of my instructors for any of the classes I took. I think he was there for my basic, and that was about it. Sean has been at just about every single class I took except for my intermediate and my bushcraft class. Every other class he's been there. So Sean's probably been the one that teach me the most out of anyone that I've ever trained under. Oh, definitely not Jax. Skiller or possibly get an abandonment. Bill, I would say it would be wise to comprehend the concept of the skill. Now, you don't need to master it or get really proficient with it or even get good at it. But if you can at least understand the basic mechanics of a particular skill, let's talk about bow drill. If you can understand, all right, this is kind of how I need to carve this up. This is kind of what I'm looking for. This is the particular motion. So one thing that I did in preparing for a class, especially for like advanced classes, is physically I'm always been in really good shape. But with bow drill, if you've ever done one, if you try 2 or 3 attempts, you're pretty much gassed out. And I wanted to be able to just continually keep trying. And Tony can tell you this because he's been in one of my advanced classes. I spent at least an hour trying to get an ember going at an advanced class, and just try, fail, take a minute break, go right back at it. And how I prepared myself for that is, I go to the gym in the morning, and I usually work out on an empty stomach. A lot of people can't do that because they feel sick. I've never felt like that, so it's perfectly fine for me. But I would go work out, and then once I'm completely wiped out from that workout, I already have a bow drill set, carved up. I'm not trying to carve one brand new. Well, what I did was, as soon as I got home, went out in the garage and just tried to work to get an ember, and just did that until I got an ember. And I did that more so for conditioning. So when it came time for the class, I wasn't going to gas out. My whole thing with classes was I trained physically with high intensity workouts, so that when I was in classes, I never experienced the same level of physical stress. All the stress I had to deal with was always mental. And if you can focus on just one of those, I would say try and focus on building your physical stress and like being able to withstand that. So when you're in a stressful class, that you can only focus on the mental and overcome that voice in your head telling you to quit. Yeah, as Jake said, there's a million and one ways to do a lot of the different skills. Just get familiar with it, and then when you get to the course, however they're teaching it, just try to run with how they're teaching that. Yeah, Matt is such a great dude. Like I can't say that enough, and I know everyone that has taught with him or has been a student can say the same thing. Yeah, like so going like that's why I said if you're looking to become an instructor now, take as many different courses you can in as many different environments as you can, because that better well rounds your skill sets, your comfortability in those environments. Like one area that I want to get more training in is training in the desert. I know Josh runs some training like that every year, so I may go out and do that at some point. But that only gives you more capabilities. So if you're out, like to travel, if you find yourself stranded in the desert, my buddy Andrew Heath, he lives in Arizona, and we were laughing because he was telling me about a class. He's like, "What I tell students is, if you're lost out here, start a fire. Someone's gonna find you. I'd rather deal with the consequences of that than be dead out in the desert." Which, in those extreme cases, yeah, that makes sense. Not advocating anyone going out and starting wildfires because that's just an asshole move, but get out there and just learn how to survive in those environments is the main key there. Definitely more than one way to skin a cat. Trying to think if there was anything else I wanted to hit on with the whole instructor thing. I mean, it just goes with social media in general. All it is a snapshot of someone's life, of something they want to show the world. I'll be the first to tell you, I can't teach every single survival skill. I focus a lot more on more modern methods, about carrying the right stuff. So if you do find yourself in that situation, you're not, up a creek without a paddle type of thing. But it's with everything you see on social media, whether that's class pictures or someone doing something, that's only a snapshot of a much bigger picture. A bigger picture of majority of that picture you're not going to see. So just take that with a grain of salt. Not everything is what it appears. That goes for meeting people in your life. I've followed people for years and then finally meet them, and they're not quite who I anticipate them to be. So you're just gonna get that in life. That's just how life is. So social media stuff like that, YouTube videos, it's just all a polished up version of life. A lot of times, some of that stuff isn't very real, unless people are out there actually getting after it. Trying to think, like Aaron Schneider, he's the owner and president of Kafaru. That dude, I've followed him for years, and he's out there backpack hunting in some of the craziest environments. So he knows what he's talking about, and he's kind of a no bullshit, keep it real simple, survival type skills. But he's more of a bow hunter. He's more of a hunter than a survival instructor, and he said that on podcasts. So in those situations, those people are really getting after it. But a lot of people are just showing you a snapshot of life. How's it going, Mike? Yeah, man, urban survival is interesting because, as you said, there's so many moving parts. I have seen a couple of courses that I'm interested in taking to kind of at least get some growth in that area because I think there's a lot of meat on the bone in that area. It's just one of the biggest challenges you'll have with some urban classes is you're gonna have if you're going through a legit school that's trying to put you in the best position as a student, have some sort of cooperation with local law enforcement. Because if you have some, goony guys running around a town with, you know, backpacks on doing survival shit, probably gonna get some weird looks and might get stopped by the cops. So I would say if you're gonna take some courses, maybe try and get some information if local law enforcement's on the same page with what they're doing. That would be the biggest challenge I would think with urban survival classes. Um, I think what else? I think for the most part that's all I really wanted to hit on. If y'all have any questions, fire them away. I'll answer a few more. LOL gay. Well, Sam Cook, you got a picture of a girl on there, and your name was Sam, and calling me gay. Come on now, that's not nice. Probably a troll account. Oh, message retracted. No. Let's see if there's anything I missed up in this. So one thing I did want to say in here that I don't think I've told anyone is that if I was gonna go on a loan. All right, I'll come back to what I was gonna say. So I actually applied for a loan last year, and I never heard back from them. That could be for a variety of reasons, but I thought about that for a long time. Obviously, for me, the biggest thing is I probably have a saw for one, and a multi-tool or an SAK. I I struggled for a long time if I would bring a belt knife or not, and my main reason for that is I've taught a lot of classes using just an SAK. I've batoned an SAK. It can be done. You have to take into considerations, but I think a lot of times with like batoning, and for instance, I think people put way too much value on that. Like, if I'm starting a fire, I'm not bucking wood. I'm gonna go find dead stuff and snap it off and throw it onto my fire. Like, I'm not burning the calories to do that. So a saw for one, possibly an axe. So what? There would be three. Um, Man, I don't even know what that gear list is like anymore. It's been so long since I've looked. I know for sure that I would try and learn how to shoot a trad bow. If you've watched the last couple of seasons, and I haven't watched it in quite a while, I don't think since the Jonas guy won it, or the season after that when the guy with the that elk or not the elk that muskox that he killed, and they had like a little stone house. But if you look at those guys, they essentially won that because they were able to gather food consistently, and not just like fish and small stuff. They were taking out big animals, and that's the key to that show, in my opinion. And you have to get lucky and get put in a good spot to be able to get those things. But if you can collect big game like that, especially if it has a lot of fat on there, because that's going to be calorie dense, that's the key. So that would be like at least my first 4 or 5 items is some ways to process, wood, more so like smaller carving to cut down trees to build shelter, obviously. So with the axe or a saw, the bow, ferro rod, because I ain't going out there trying to do a bow drill, and I'm tethering that ferro rod to my belt because I ain't losing that thing at all. Other than that, I think when I looked at the list, one of the things I really considered was bringing in some sort of food source with me, because I know they give you a couple of different options. I think I would bring in the gorp, which I think it's like 2 pounds of gorp. And my thought process behind that would be either food that I can set traps with, or that gives me a little bit of sustenance for those first couple of days while I gather food and start creating my stockpile. That's kind of how I would go about it. Everyone's going to be different on what they're going to want to take, though. So, kind of what I was going to say before we hopped into the 10 items on a loan was, I know it's probably some of you have seen the podcast that me, Tony, Andrew, and Jake did. We haven't really posted anything on that. For the time being, it's going to be shelved for a while. We just all got too many different things going on. But something I'm thinking about doing myself is launching my own pass. I don't know why he is restreaming your stream. I don't even know who Mr. T 2.0 is. So I appreciate that, Carlos. I'll see if I can't make the screen smaller in a second here and go over onto actual YouTube. But I've been kicking around the idea of launching my own podcast by myself. Still kind of working out the details, but something with these live streams, I think I'm gonna make these a more consistent thing. Maybe once a week. Ideally on Sundays, I'll start throwing up posts, and then if there's particular topics you want to hit on, we can do that. Obviously, if I can't do them on Sunday, we'll shift and do it on a day that I can. But I think for the most part, that's kind of what I all wanted to hit on. Answer a ton of questions with you guys. Until the next one that we do. Think about some more questions. Shoot them over me in some DMs. Until then, get outdoors, learn some skills, adapt your mind, your body, and your gear. It's great chatting with you guys. Take it easy. Oh, off the path, since it's already made. I could, but that was a little bit of a collaborative thing between the four of us. So for me to run off with something that we were all kind of do together, for me that doesn't sit right. So I want to, if I do the solo podcast thing, it'll be a little bit different concept, a little bit more broader in its scope, because my interests are extremely broad. I know everyone's got their interests, but mine reach all over the place. So not out of the realm that comes back at some time down the road, but for the time being it won't. And if I do a podcast, it's going to be by myself. Like I said, Carlos, thanks for the heads up. I'll go over there and see what that weirdo is talking about. Until next time, see you guys out in the woods.